In Buddhism, the art of letting go begins with a simple yet profound truth: everything changes. This is the teaching of anicca, impermanence, a reality that unfolds before our eyes every day. We watch seasons shift, bodies age, and emotions rise and fall like waves. Yet, despite knowing change is inevitable, we often cling to people, objects, and experiences as if they could last forever. This attachment, upādāna, becomes the root of much of our suffering. Minimalism, at its core, harmonizes with this understanding. It asks us to release the illusion that more possessions lead to more happiness. Instead, it invites us to see that what is impermanent cannot truly be owned. It can only be experienced and appreciated in the moment. In the Buddhist path, letting go is not about deprivation or rejecting the beauty of life. It is about freeing ourselves from the grasp of wanting, so we can actually be present for what is here. When we loosen our hold, something remarkable happens. Life feels lighter. The mind is no longer tangled in worries about maintaining, replacing, or protecting what we have. We discover that peace is not stored in a box, displayed on a shelf, or hidden in a bank account. It is born in the spaciousness of a mind that knows how to release. In this way, minimalism becomes more than a lifestyle. It becomes a practice of liberation. Craving, or tanhā, in Buddhist teachings, is the restless engine that drives much of our discontent. It whispers that happiness lies just beyond the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next possession. We chase this mirage endlessly, thinking that if we just gather enough, whether it's clothes, gadgets, or even experiences, we'll finally feel whole. But the moment we obtain what we desire, the mind quickly moves on, hungry for more. This is the endless cycle of samsara, where satisfaction is always temporary. In the minimalist lens, this craving is recognized as the root of clutter, both in our homes and in our hearts. It's not simply the objects themselves that weigh us down, it's the mental hooks they create. Every item comes with its own subtle demand for attention, storage, and maintenance, all of which siphon away our time and energy. The Buddha saw that as long as we're caught in this loop of wanting and acquiring, true peace will remain out of reach. Recognizing desire for what it is, just a passing mental event, is the first step toward breaking free. This doesn't mean we must renounce all possessions, but rather that we begin to question the pull behind them. By pausing before we acquire, asking, "Is this truly needed, or is it just another ripple of craving?" we start to loosen the chain. Over time, desire loses its power, and we find that freedom was never in the next thing, it was in the letting go. In Buddhism, there is a beautiful term, santutthi, contentment with what one has. This is not resignation, but a deep appreciation for just enough. Minimalism echoes this same wisdom, reminding us that life does not require endless accumulation to be rich and fulfilling. Instead, the abundance we seek often arises when we learn to honor sufficiency over excess. The Buddha taught that craving leads to restlessness, while contentment leads to peace. Having just enough is not about measuring an exact quantity of possessions, but about sensing when the heart is already full. A simple bowl of rice, eaten with awareness, can feel more nourishing than a feast consumed in distraction. In the same way, a small home with space to breathe can feel more spacious than a mansion filled to the brim. Practicing sufficiency also sharpens our mindfulness. Each belonging is chosen with care, appreciated fully, and used respectfully. When we stop chasing the next thing, we become more present with what is already here. This shift dissolves the anxiety of always needing more, replacing it with gratitude for what we already hold. Minimalism, through a Buddhist lens, is not austerity. It is the art of recognizing the point where adding more no longer adds value. When we dwell in that space, life feels balanced, uncluttered, and deeply whole, even if the world tells us we should want more. Our possessions are rarely just physical objects. They often carry layers of memory, identity, and expectation. A box of old letters might represent a relationship we can't fully release. A wardrobe overflowing with clothes might reflect an image of ourselves we feel pressured to maintain. Over time, these items become more than things. They become anchors that keep us tied to the past or bound by the fear of letting go. Buddhism teaches that attachment, whether to people, objects, or ideas, weighs heavily on the mind. Each possession carries a subtle thread of responsibility, something to maintain, protect, or worry about losing. The more we own, the more mental energy we spend keeping those threads from tangling. This is why, even in a comfortable home, we can feel strangely restless or burdened. Minimalism invites us to examine these attachments with compassion and honesty. It is not about tossing things away carelessly, but about asking, does this serve my life, or does it demand more than it gives? Through this process, we begin to see that many of the weights we carry are self-imposed. As we let go of excess, we feel a tangible lightness, not only in our living space but in our inner space as well. Freed from the constant hum of mental clutter, our minds can rest more easily. In that quiet, we discover that peace was never hidden in the objects themselves, but in the space we create when we release them. Mindful living in Buddhism begins with sati, the practice of awareness in each moment. When applied to our possessions and commitments, this awareness transforms the way we choose, keep, and use what fills our lives. Instead of surrounding ourselves with objects out of habit or impulse, we pause to ask whether they align with our values and genuinely support our well-being. Minimalism, when rooted in mindfulness, becomes more than decluttering. It becomes intentional living. Each item we own is selected with care, each commitment accepted with clarity. This practice reduces the friction of decision fatigue, the mental strain that comes from navigating a life overloaded with options and obligations. When our environment reflects our priorities, the mind naturally feels calmer and more focused. Buddhist teachings remind us that intention shapes our experience. Owning something simply because it was on sale or everyone else has it often leads to distraction rather than joy. But when our choices arise from awareness, every belonging feels purposeful. Even the simplest cup or pen can hold quiet beauty when used with full presence. By living with mindful intention, we create a home and a life that support, rather than compete with, our inner growth. The fewer distractions we have, the more attention we can give to what truly matters, cultivating compassion, wisdom, and peace within ourselves and with others. In Buddhist monasteries, spaces are often simple, uncluttered, and serene. This is not by accident. It reflects the understanding that our environment shapes our mind. When physical surroundings are crowded and chaotic, the mind tends to mirror that same state. But when we create space, both literally and figuratively, we invite clarity and stillness to arise. Minimalism helps us make room for the sacred. By reducing the noise of excess possessions, we allow more room for meditation, contemplation, and spiritual practice. An open floor, a clean table, a single candle, these become invitations to return to the present moment. In a quiet, uncluttered space, the breath feels easier, thoughts slow down, and the heart feels more at ease. Buddhist practice is not about escaping the world, but about engaging with it from a place of balance. A simplified space serves as a mirror for the mind. When the outer environment is calm, it becomes easier to notice the subtle movements within us. Over time, the spaciousness we cultivate outside begins to reflect in our inner landscape, creating a steady foundation for deeper insight. In this way, minimalism is not just an aesthetic choice, it is a spiritual one. By removing what is unnecessary, we make space for what is essential. The still, quiet awareness that is always present beneath the noise. Letting go in Buddhism is not merely a personal act, it often blossoms into generosity, or dāna. When we release what we no longer need, we create the opportunity for those items to serve someone else. In this way, minimalism becomes an act of compassion, transforming excess into resources for others. The Buddha taught that generosity is one of the most direct ways to loosen the grip of attachment. When we give freely, without expecting anything in return, we experience the joy of connection and the freedom of a lighter heart. It's a practice that benefits both giver and receiver. Minimalism provides the perfect ground for this practice by continually asking us to evaluate what we truly need and what we can pass along. This generosity extends beyond physical objects. We can let go of time-consuming commitments and offer our time to help others. We can release old grudges and offer forgiveness. We can simplify our schedules so that we are more present with loved ones. In every case, the act of letting go becomes a gift, not only to others, but to ourselves. When minimalism is infused with the Buddhist spirit of generosity, it shifts from being solely about personal peace to becoming a path of shared well-being. Our space clears, our hearts open, and the benefits ripple outward in ways we might never fully see. In the Buddhist path, the ultimate freedom is not simply owning less. It is realizing that our sense of worth is not tied to what we have at all. Possessions, status, even the roles we play in life are all impermanent, like sand castles built at the edge of the tide. The deeper liberation comes when we no longer define ourselves through these shifting forms. Minimalism can help guide us toward this insight. By gradually releasing the physical clutter, we begin to notice the mental and emotional clutter that has also been shaping our lives. We see how much energy we've spent trying to maintain an image, prove our value, or secure a sense of safety through things that can never truly provide it. This awareness is the doorway to freedom. In Buddhism, this is the movement toward nibbana, the cooling of the fires of craving, aversion, and delusion. It's a freedom that is not dependent on circumstances, because it arises from within. A person living in a simple hut, free from attachment, can be far richer in spirit than someone surrounded by luxury but imprisoned by desire. When we understand this, minimalism becomes more than a choice about how to live. It becomes a reflection of who we are when we are free. And in that freedom, we discover that nothing is missing, because we already carry everything that matters. As the journey of minimalism and Buddhism comes full circle, we return to the heart of the matter. Letting go is not about losing, it is about gaining space for what truly nourishes the soul. Each act of release, whether it's parting with an old possession or loosening the grip of an old story, opens a little more room for presence, peace, and compassion to take root. In the quiet that follows, we begin to notice life's subtle gifts, the sound of wind moving through leaves, the warmth of a shared smile, the stillness of early morning. These are not things we can buy or keep. They are moments to be experienced fully and then allowed to pass, like clouds drifting across a wide sky. Minimalism in the Buddhist sense is never a competition to own the least or live the most austerely. It is a gentle, ongoing practice of aligning our outer life with our inner values, of removing what distracts so that we can better see what is real. It is a commitment to live intentionally, to be awake to the beauty of just enough, and to extend that clarity and compassion to the world around us. As we walk this path, the weight we once carried falls away, and we find ourselves standing lighter, freer, more open. And in that openness, we may realize that the true treasure was never in what we possessed, but in the spaciousness of a heart unbound.